Welcome and hello. This is a video lesson on EPA Swim, and in this lesson I'm going to be discussing the user interface, specifically the map, the status bar, and the browser side panels. So let's go ahead and get started. If you haven't already watched the first lesson on user interface, that was lesson 2. That's where I covered the menu items up here and then these toolbar buttons. Go ahead and check that out. This is lesson 3. This is where I talk about all the other things in the user interface. All right, let's go ahead and get started. What I have on the screen here is my swim. I have one of the sample models up. If you want to load a sample model, you can go up to the help menu and then welcome screen. And then I just selected this first one for site runoff drainage. Okay, so it opens up a text box there, text editor. And then here is our map. I also want to maximize that right there. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the map itself, the map toolbar buttons over here on the right side, the status bar, which is down on the bottom, and then the left panel, which contains our project browser and map browser, as well as the property data tables right here. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Here is the map. The window itself is called the study area map. So right now it's docked inside of this main window, but I can click on this button right here. Yep, so this undocks it. I can go ahead and move it around, resize it. Study area map. I'm going to go ahead and click this button here to again maximize it within this window. This is the main map window that serves as a canvas to the model elements and any background images. So as you've noticed, I can already pan around using these tools here. So here's the pan hand. I can just go ahead and click that or middle mouse button. The zoom in button is right here. I can just zoom in that way. And then if I click zoom out, it zooms me out. I can also use the wheel. The mouse wheel will zoom me in and zoom me out. This button here is the zoom extents. And this whole toolbar on the side, this is considered the map toolbar. So it's for navigating and then adding elements to the map. Objects can be added to the map, moved, edited, and deleted with ease. The map itself can be copied to your clipboard or to a file. So to demonstrate that, I'll just go ahead and select the map. So this is active and then go up to copy. Right here, I can click on copy. That same dialog box is also available in the edit menu and then copy to, all right? So if I wanted to copy it to my clipboard, just as a bitmap image, click OK. Then I can open up an image editing software and just paste it in and boom, go ahead and save that. But I don't want to do that. Or I could just copy it to a file directly by going File, OK, and then saving it to my computer that way. The results can also be viewed in different colors. So after a simulation is run, you can use this map area to display some of the model results. And we'll be looking at that a little bit later when we click on this map tab towards the end of the lesson. Okay, back over to the map toolbar on this far right here. I'll talk about this. The arrow will select individual elements. And then if I wanted to open up the properties for that element, like this sub catchment, I could just double click, or I believe I can go right click and open the properties like that. With this sub catchment selected, I can then click on this open arrow, and that will allow me to modify the location of the vertices that make up that shape. But that's not only true for the subcatchment, it's also for the conduits. So if I select the conduit and then I click on the open arrow, I can now resize the shape of that particular conduit just by moving these vertices around. I can also select a region by clicking on this button here. This is the select region tool, and then go ahead and select a region. These three tools for selecting a point, vertices, or region are also available up here in the edit menu for select object, vertex, or region. And then same with the zoom of pan, zoom in, zoom out, and extents. Those are available up here in the zoom menu item, pan, zoom in, zoom out, and extents. So a little bit of overlap between the different tools here, but it's all for convenience sake. I'm going to go ahead and click zoom extents. So now here's my full project again. Next down is a measure tool. This is, I think, very helpful. So click on the measure tool. It will measure out a distance. So I can just do a single left click and then a right click. It tells me the distance is 319 feet. I can also measure the area. So if I wanted the area of this attachment right here, I would just go ahead and sketch the perimeter. Now I'm not being exact about this, but then I'll just click here, here, and then my final click is going to be a right click right where I started, right here. Now it's telling me the distance, which is the perimeter of 1,779 feet, and then the area is 4.444 acres. If I clicked on the actual area, let's go ahead and see what it says. It says 4.55, so I was a little bit under. But yeah, pretty close for just sketching it and also zoomed out. Below that, in the map toolbar, I have elements that I can add to my map, and we could just read them together. The first one here at the top is rain gauge, subcatchment, junction nodes, outfall nodes, divider nodes, storage nodes, conduit link, pump link, orifice, weir, outlet, and map label. So for instance, if I wanted to add a map label, just go ahead and click on that label. All right, there's my label. I'll click on the arrow tool. So that's the label right there. I can move it around just like that. I can add a number of other elements. So if I wanted a rain gauge, I could put a rain gauge right there. If I wanted a catchment or a subcatchment, I believe I just sketched that out like so, and then right click to finish. This little handle in the middle of the catchment serves as the centroid. So if I wanted to, for instance, select that catchment, select the vertex, and then reshape it, then if I click the arrow tool, then the centroid location changes as well. And then if I double click, I have the X and Y coordinates of that centroid. All right. And if I add a junction, that's just a single left click. So there's a few more junctions right there. All right. I think you get the idea. With all of these objects that we added, we can go ahead and define the properties. I'll talk about the properties a little bit later though. Along the bottom is the status bar. So we have auto length that's turned off by default. This controls whether the software automatically calculates the conduit length and the subcatchment area based on the spatial data in the model. So what that means is the auto length is off right here, which means like for this catchment area, if I go ahead and select that, right click, properties, it says an area of 5 acres right here. To change that, go ahead and click on the little arrow down here. Auto length is now on. So this will now use the actual map coordinates to calculate the conduit length and the subcatchment area. So let's just go ahead and sketch in another subcatchment here and then right click to finish, arrow, right click to select properties. Now you notice that the area is 1.11. It's no longer using the default area that is in my settings, project settings. It's just actually measuring out based on the X and Y values for the vertices. So if you want to find out where those default values are, such as the default subcatchment area, just go up to project defaults. And then for the subcatchment tab here, here is the 5 acres. So there's other parameters as well, like percent slope, percent impervious, and so on. All right, next down in the status bar is offset depth. The different options for offset is either depth offset or elevation offset. This option controls if a link's inlet and outlet are expressed in elevation or in depth. So for instance, if I click on a conduit on the map, like right here, conduit C1, let me go ahead and just double click, open up its properties. You see that the inlet offset is 0 and the outlet offset is also 0. This is because it's represented in terms of depth. But I'm going to go ahead and just close that property box, change this to elevation offsets. It's asking me, am I sure? I say yes. Now let's open up that property box once again. Now we see an inlet offset of 4973 and an outlet offset at the downstream end at 4969.8. So this is using elevation values. So I'll close that. Next over is flow units. So if you wanted to change the flow units, it's currently in CFS, but we also have gallons per minute. I believe MGD is million gallons per day. So if you had particularly smaller numbers, smaller than CFS values, then you may want to use gallons per minute. If you had abnormally large values, you may want to switch it to MGD, million gallons per day. And then if you wanted to use metric units, then you have some similar options here. I believe CMS is cubic meters per second, liters per second, and million liters per day is my guess. All right, after that, we have the flag status. This is called run status. So white flag right down here, there's no functionality to it. It's just an output. When you see a white flag, that means that there are no results available, like the simulation has not run yet. Here's the user's manual on this topic. Green flag here means that the results are up to date. Yellow flag means that the results are out of date due to a change that has occurred in the project data. And then lastly, if you see a red flag, that means that there was an error in the last simulation. All right, so that's what the flag status is all about. Zoom level, this just tells you what level you're on. So for instance, if I'm zoomed in, it's going to say 200%, 400%, and then zoomed out back to 100%. If I click on the full extents, that'll be 100%. Yeah. And then just beside that, the last part of this status toolbar here, we have the X and Y values. So if you move your mouse around on the screen, it'll tell you the exact X and Y values to the nearest what looks like thousandth of a foot. And if you want to get the coordinates or set the coordinates of a particular object on your map, then you can go ahead and use these X and Y values. Now, if I wanted to say move my subbasin, I can just click it and then drag it. Or if I wanted to move it a certain amount, I can also double click, open up the property box, and then change that X and Y value to a certain amount. That way I could get the number exactly right just by typing it in right here, as opposed to trusting that I can move my mouse cursor the exact distance that I want to move the object. All right, well, that is it for the status bar. Next up in this left panel, we have the project browser and the map browser. Now, the project map browser provides access to all the data objects in the project. At the top here, we have this tree-like structure for navigating the different objects. And then down below here are the different objects within the selected category. This box here can be resized vertically just by using this little tool, and then also horizontally in case you need more or less space. Let's go ahead and drill down. So for example, if I wanted to expand or collapse, I would just click on the little triangle. I'm going to expand on hydraulics. And then it looks like we have a number of children here. And then if I expand on nodes and then expand on junctions, or I guess I select junctions, and then down below here, I'm going to be seeing the different junctions that are individual objects in the map. If I select the junction here, junction 3, it will highlight on the map. Here's junction 4, it highlights on the map. Also, if I select the junction on the map, it will highlight in the junction list box right here. So there's junction 1. If I click on this one here, junction 6, there it is. Those two highlighting features are coordinated between the list box and the map. We also have some buttons right up here. So for instance, if I wanted to add a junction, I just go ahead and click the plus button. The junction has been added as soon as I move my mouse and click on the map. All right, that added junction 6, it looks like. I can also remove that junction 6 by selecting it here, clicking the minus button, and then there's a delete confirmation, and now it's gone. All right, next I can select the junction and then click on edit. This will bring up the property editor. I can move the junction up or down by selecting the junction and then clicking the up or down button here. And then finally, I can sort the junctions, what looks like a string sort, because we have 11 in front of 2. So that's it for the project browser. We also have the map browser right here. This is meant for viewing results. So once we have ran a simulation, then we can identify the theme, time period, and animator are the three main components to this map browser. So for instance, if I had subcatchment, I wanted to color code it based on area. We have color on our map now. Nodes, I could base those based on invert, and then the links could be based on slope, something like that. Now there is a legend here, and I previously removed the legend for subcatchments and nodes, so I'll need to get that back. But anyway, there is a legend associated with all of these properties, and if you want to change the color, just go ahead and right click and then modify the numbers to change the values that define the threshold between these different colors right here. You can also modify the color ramp if you want. In the time period section of the map browser, you can set the start date time and duration. And then the animator, you can go ahead and play through the simulation by clicking on the play button, pausing it, rolling it back, or rolling it back to the start using the different tools. The last part of this lesson we've already touched on many times, and that's the property editor. So to bring up the property editor of, say, this particular subcatchment, I can either double click, here are the values, or I could go right click properties. Also, I can access the properties by browsing to that subcatchment within the project browser. So here's the subcatchment, that's S1. I can double click right here, or I can select that subcatchment and then click edit. Anyway, multiple different ways to open up this box. A few things that I haven't already pointed out is if you're not sure what a value means, you can go ahead and select on that row, and then we have a description down here. So percent slope, percent impervious, impervious, mperv. You can also scroll down, make sure you're not forgetting any of these other values. Sub area routing. If you want to change a number, you can just go ahead and type the new number in. And then to save the number, you can go ahead and hit enter, or you can just move the arrow so you're into a different cell. This box itself is mobile. You can just grab it, move it around. You can also resize it and resize the individual columns. And if you start making a change, but then change your mind, you can just hit the escape key and then it goes back to its original value. All right, well, that was it for this lesson. What we talked about was the SWMM interface, the user interface specifically the map toolbars, the status bar at the bottom. On the left, we talked about the project browser and the map browser. And then finally, we talked about the property editor.